Welcome to the Tim Booker channel, where wisdom is worth spreading. Wishing you a pleasant listening experience. Today, we're discussing the book Brainwash with the subtitle, The Secret History of Mind Control. Can your brain truly be controlled by others? This is both a scientific and political question, one that concerns everyone. We can find answers in this book. Curious about the various methods of brainwashing? This book will enlighten you. Brainwashing techniques are diverse. Scientists, politicians, and businessmen all want to grasp these secrets. Even agencies like the CIA have delved deep into the development of mind control techniques, resulting in the dark yet sometimes absurd stories discussed in this book. The author of this book is Dominic Streatfeild, an independent journalist and documentary producer from the UK, known for delving into dark histories. His notable works include Cocaine, an unauthorized biography, and this book, Brainwash, both of which have been bestsellers. Particularly, Brainwash has earned a place on the CIA's official reading list. Why is this book so popular worldwide? Because it addresses a question that piques everyone's curiosity: is there truly a technology that can control our thoughts? From the CIA to major marketers and even religious figures, they all have their own techniques. Who excels in the art of brainwashing? Faced with ubiquitous propaganda, persuasion, and psychological manipulation, how can we resist brainwashing? How can we maintain independent, clear thinking to protect our own minds? In the following sections, we'll delve into these aspects as we explore brainwash. What defines brainwashing? While the term is familiar, its definition can be broadened to encompass debate tactics, rhetoric, persuasion, and marketing. These all involve making others unquestioningly accept one's words and alter their original beliefs. However, brainwashing carries a more ominous connotation. It emerged during the Cold War and was coined by the CIA. They believed that the Soviet bloc possessed a technology capable of controlling people's thoughts, thus naming it brainwashing. This term became associated with maliciously manipulating a victim's thoughts and morals to make them subservient to the manipulator's will. To contrast it with debate tactics, rhetoric, persuasion, and marketing, brainwashing takes less time, produces more noticeable effects, and is harder to reverse. In metaphorical terms, brainwashing is like implanting a Trojan horse program into the human brain. Despite its sinister undertones, intelligence agencies worldwide sought to master this technique, recognizing its potential in politics, business, and religion. Therefore, throughout the 20th century, Western intelligence agencies dedicated significant resources to studying brainwashing. Private organizations and religious institutions followed suit, each exploring their methods of brainwashing. The CIA's first significant achievement in this field was truth serum. This substance, consisting of barbiturates, was initially discovered by British doctors in the 1930s. It induced patients to reveal their innermost thoughts and secrets. However, this discovery remained relatively unknown until World War II, when British military doctors used it to treat soldiers suffering from war-induced psychological illnesses. Surprisingly, the Nazi Schutzstaffel, SS, also experimented with this substance for interrogations in concentration camps. Given these common interests, the CIA embarked on a worldwide search for plants containing narcotic substances, sending botanists to gather various materials such as poisonous mushrooms, Datura stramonium, peyote cacti, mandrake, and even venom from toads' backs. One notable instance involved extracting substances from African crocodile bile. They debated whether to source the bile locally or transport a live crocodile to the United States for preservation. Eventually, they chose the latter option to ensure freshness. However, despite these extensive efforts, none of the experiments proved successful. While the substances induced talkativeness, the veracity of the statements was dubious. The CIA sought a truth serum, but these experiments only resulted in a mix of truths and falsehoods, making it impractical. Ultimately, after squandering considerable resources, research into drug-based mind control was halted. Similar studies, including hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and subconscious implantation, yielded inconclusive results. The most shocking revelation in this book is not the absurdity of the CIA's research but the discovery that, from the beginning, the CIA knew there was no such thing as Soviet brainwashing. The CIA propagated this notion to create a climate of fear, legitimizing its own research efforts. Looking back, the backdrop of the Cold War provided fertile ground for the spread of brainwashing rumors. However, beyond generating a plethora of literary and cinematic works and casting a psychological shadow on the American people, there were no substantial achievements. So, can we say that brainwashing doesn't exist, and we have nothing to worry about? Keep listening. The commercial application of brainwashing and the implantation of subconscious information. While the CIA was busy with its efforts, money went down the drain. Simultaneously, it's uncertain whether the media sensationalism fueled the pseudoscience of brainwashing in the commercial sector or if genuine experts existed among the public. Either way, the 1950s and 1960s saw a wave of suspected brainwashing cases in the United States, with everyone seemingly obsessed with the subject. In the 1950s, there was a man named James Vickery who invented something called a tachistoscope. It could project images on a movie screen for approximately 1/1000th of a second. Vickery told the media that he had conducted experiments in a New Jersey cinema using the tachistoscope. During screenings, he repeatedly flashed two messages on the screen, eat popcorn and drink cola, each lasting for 1/30th of a second. Such a short time was nearly imperceptible to the naked eye. However, Vickery claimed that using this method could subliminally influence people to crave popcorn and cola involuntarily. He even presented impressive statistics, stating that his tachistoscope projections increased popcorn sales by 57.7% and cola sales by 18.1% in movie theaters. Vickery also claimed to have developed subliminal advertising for major companies like AT&T and Ford. As soon as Vickery's experiments were announced, they gained media attention. American advertising agencies quickly cashed in on subliminal advertising, even developing audio versions. For instance, a Chicago radio station introduced subliminal messages into their broadcasts, encouraging listeners to drink 7-Up and purchase Oklahoma oil. A Minneapolis radio station used subliminal messages to remind listeners to be cautious of icy roads and remember to send Christmas cards. However, 1 year later, Vickery was invited to demonstrate his experiments again, this time in front of members of Congress and reporters, and the results were inconsistent. Despite repeatedly projecting the message, "Eat popcorn," onto the movie screen, no one in the audience felt the urge to eat popcorn or anything else. Only one senator hesitated and said he might want to eat a hot dog. After this, Vickery's claims lost credibility. The British company Lingerfelt, which produced foreign language teaching records, also dabbled in subliminal messaging. They introduced a dream learning machine that supposedly played educational content to children while they slept. Testing the product in a children's summer camp, they played the phrase, "My fingernails are bitter," to 20 boys with a nail-biting habit. A month later, 8 of the boys had stopped the habit. There are also accounts of a Spanish singer learning Italian through the dream learning machine, and a German woman mastering perfect English through repeated sleep learning. Whether these products were genuinely effective remains questionable. Nonetheless, they all shared a common theoretical foundation, the ability to bypass conscious thought and implant desires or knowledge into the subconscious. In psychology, this phenomenon is known as subliminal perception. However, the techniques for effectively influencing a person's subliminal perception have not been fully developed. Therefore, the efficacy of products like those mentioned earlier remains uncertain. Nevertheless, the theory of subconscious implantation created an atmosphere and logic that led many to believe that it was possible for someone to control their actions by influencing their subconscious. This belief gave rise to a terrifying incident in 1985, just before Christmas. 2 American teenagers, after listening to the album of the British heavy metal band Judas Priest, both attempted suicide with shotguns. One died instantly, while the other survived with severe facial injuries. At the crime scene, the police discovered the album and informed the deceased teenager's mother that this wasn't the first case of teen suicides triggered by heavy metal music. The mother immediately sued the record label, Columbia Records. Her lawyer argued that, first, the album's cover art was highly suggestive. It depicted a laser passing through the left eye of a metallic head and exiting the right temple, with liquid flowing from the right eye. Did this imply headshots with guns? Second, experts identified 7 subliminal messages in the album's 6th song, Better By You, Better Than Me. After isolation, these messages were revealed to be commands, with one message saying, "Do it." This discovery caused quite a sensation, with many believing that music had the power to subliminally prompt violence or suicide. However, such claims had persisted since the infamous Black Sabbath incident, where certain songs were believed to possess the power to drive people to commit murder. These allegations, though widely publicized, lacked substantial evidence. In this case, the American court did not accept the claims and ruled that Columbia Records was not responsible. You see, matters that the authorities couldn't resolve and pseudoscientists couldn't prove persisted with uncertainty. So, can we conclude that brainwashing no longer exists? No, it's still too early. Now, let's take a look at the brainwashing techniques used by cult leaders. In fact, we should have realized long ago that the miraculous brainwashing that politics and business couldn't find might be hidden in the hands of some religious leaders. This book mentions a new religion called the Unification Church. Its leader was a South Korean with a distinctive personality, founded in South Korea but eventually thriving in the United States, with its headquarters in New York. This sect, aside from frequently holding large collective weddings with thousands of participants, didn't seem much different from other religious groups. However, for its followers, the Unification Church had an incredibly strong power of spiritual control. Next, we'll tell the story of an American brother and sister and their experience with the Unification Church. One day, 18-year-old Sister Catherine Green came across a promotional booth at the market. The staff claimed to represent a non-profit organization. Catherine was quickly captivated by the photos on display, a group of young people working together on a rural farm, farming, playing the guitar, attending classes, studying, a scene of sunshine and freedom. We know that in the 1960s and 1970s, with the external challenges of the oil crisis and the Vietnam War and internal issues like the civil rights movement and the Watergate scandal, the authority of the government had plummeted. Young people were seeking new ways of life but couldn't find the ideal path for themselves. Seeing such an idyllic scene must have had immense appeal to them. Catherine followed the staff to the Unification Church's farm, and once there, she never wanted to go back home. Her brother, Ford Green, was deeply concerned and, along with two friends, found the Unification Church's farm to persuade her to return. However, as soon as they arrived at the farm, fellow members of the Unification Church warmly welcomed them. When Ford explained his intention, "I've come to rescue my sister," the teacher immediately shouted, "Ford, we love you, we love you." Everyone joined in, and then they kindly divided Ford and the other two into groups, allowing them to experience and engaging in deep conversations with them. Interestingly, Ford, who had initially suffered from depression, was moved by the warmth he received during those few days. He felt that the people here were unbelievably friendly and ultimately decided to join the Unification Church. However, what did these young people do after joining the sect? They severed ties with their original families, worked 20 hours a day under the guise of charity, selling flowers, candy, flags, vacuum cleaners, and more. In reality, they were supporting the sect's leader, including many underage members. Over time, Ford couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to break away from the organization. It took him a year to come to terms with the fact that he was no longer a Unification Church member. Afterward, he did something significant. He tried to save those ensnared by the Unification Church's influence. He called this process thought detox, believing that the Unification Church's followers were poisoned in their thoughts and needed treatment. The movement gained attention and became a major headline in the United States. Ford successfully detoxed over 100 sect members, and more people joined the cause. However, their methods were unusual: kidnapping, physical violence, torture, and verbal abuse. In one instance, a thought detoxer rescued a girl from the Unification Church's fanaticism and brought her back home. When he told the girl's parents, "You can rest easy now, your daughter is back to being a Christian." The parents were taken aback and said, "But she was originally Jewish." On April 13, 1977, Ford Green kidnapped his sister Catherine in an attempt to detoxify her thoughts, but he failed, and she never returned home. As of the writing of the Brainwashing book, Catherine was still a member of the Unification Church and had married a Japanese man. Neither spoke each other's language, but what mattered to them was that their marriage had received blessings. Under the sun, there are countless stories that can be inferred from this case. The recruitment methods of the Unification Church were strikingly similar to those of known pyramid schemes. Ford's thought detox resembled the treatment of internet-addicted youth today, although they didn't have access to methods like electroconvulsive therapy back then. To sum it up, the book tells us that because of its inherent power, once the key to brainwashing is found, it can easily control people in a short time, releasing immeasurable political, commercial, and religious interests. That's why everyone is interested in it. The Brainwashing book shows us the fear and exploration of brainwashing in Western society, from the fear of brainwashing Soviet citizens in the 1950s and 1960s to concerns about emerging religions and brainwashing by advertising companies in the 1970s, and even the imagination of rock music brainwashing in the 1980s. Among these, only brainwashing by emerging religions has been successful. So, let's summarize the ways to deal with brainwashing. First, prevention is crucial because it's challenging to reverse brainwashing once it occurs. The story of the American siblings teaches us that successful brainwashing often happens in closed environments through repeated indoctrination. Therefore, it's essential to stay away from such environments. If you must be in such a situation, stay vigilant. Second, learn to pause and think. Cultivate critical thinking, skepticism, and self-awareness. These are ways to pause and think. Lastly, read more books. Exposure to various knowledge and historical context can help us understand and address real-world issues. This is where the Brainwashing book concludes. Congratulations, you've completed another book. Thank you for your support and attention. Please subscribe to the Tim Booker channel, like, and share with your family and friends. Wisdom is worth spreading for a better future. Thank you, and goodbye.